Rachel Holt for Nesson.com. Welcome into our fantasy football podcast for Week 12. I'm joined by NFL Media's Adam Rank. Adam, thanks for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. With a lot of excitement in the air. The Thanksgiving holiday is upon us. That means fantasy playoffs are around the corner. There's so much stuff going on.
There's too much going on. I don't know if I'm more excited for food or football, but things to remember for tomorrow. The games do start at 12:30 p.m. on Thanksgiving, so set your lineups early. We have a fun-filled day ahead of us. For only the second time in NFL history, every team that's playing tomorrow has a 500 record or better. So there is some good football to be played. This is every person's dream, especially if you don't like your family too much, you can just hang out on the couch. The Lions and the Vikings, they're both looking for control of the NFC North. We have Dak Prescott and the Cowboys taking on the Redskins, and they're looking for their 10th win in a row, and the Steelers and the Colts both have identical records. So some of us will get scolded at them if we don't work for the NFL Network and we watch all three games tomorrow. Which one should we pay the closest attention to?
Well, personally, I like the morning game, but I think for most rational fans, they're going to be looking at the Cowboys and Redskins. Obviously, this has big implications for the NFC East, but also, for fantasy enthusiasts, you've got two great quarterbacks going head-to-head, Dak Prescott, who a lot of people obviously grabbed off the waiver wire and is doing pretty well for you so far this season. I think last week was a big hurdle when a lot of people thought that perhaps the weight of being the number one quarterback, the permanent number one quarterback, might have been a little bit much, and he goes out there, throws 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, tried to throw away a water cup, missed the trash can, and still went over and picked it up to show that he's a true mensch. Right? So he's a mensch. He loves the environment. You're like, all right, this guy voted for the right person for president, I'm sure. But, on the other side of the football, Washington's been playing really well. Additionally, plus, Kirk Cousins, I know he gets a bad reputation for only torching bad defenses, but you're like, look, 28 of the 32 defenses in the NFL are terrible. So that's actually not that's not a bad thing, So he's been playing really well, really made the Packers look silly, which I always enjoy as a Bears fan. Plus, Fat Rob, R. Kelly, has been amazing. That dude just trucks people. That's the one thing that I've really admired about his running style, is that he's been punishing dudes. And he was one of the guys that I kind of identified in the preseason as somebody to really keep an eye on. I thought that he would eventually take over for Matt Jones because I was on a zero Matt Jones theory. And I got a lot of heat for it. I mean, listen, I make wrong predictions. I know that. But every once in a while, when you make one like that, then a guy starts coming through, you take it a little bit, a little extra pride in it. So I've enjoyed watching him over these last couple of weeks.
Well, we've heard a lot of your right predictions, so we'll give you that. Adam, I have to ask you, because Andrew Luck may be out with a concussion. We're not entirely 100% sure yet, and they may have to start Scott Tolzien at quarterback. This is a guy who's been in the league since 2011, and he's just a career backup. So when he has had his chances, they haven't been too great. If he does get the start, what are you expecting out of this game?
Well, I mean, the last time he did make a meaningful start, it was for the Green Bay Packers, and he threw for 339 yards. He did have 3 interceptions, which, of course, is bad. But, look, nobody's starting Scott Tolzien in their fantasy leagues. The one thing that you need to know, does he have the ability to get the ball to T.Y. Hilton and to Dante Moncrief? And I think that he does. It really just comes down to the Colts' willingness to let him go back there and just throw the ball around. You've seen way too many of these coaches just sit there and be a little bit more conservative, just looking at like what Jeff Fisher's done to Jared Goff. Like, he won't let him throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field. But if the Colts will actually approach this in a rational way and be like, all right, Tolzien, just go out there and sling it, I think he can be productive in that he will allow T.Y. Hilton to go out and do his thing. So I do think they have to take some shots. They have to try to win this game. So I do expect Tolzien to be able to throw the ball a little bit. I look for Frank Gore to run the ball a lot. That's pretty much what they're going to try to do, is just shorten the game and have Frank Gore run a lot. But I think that Tolzien can still get the ball to T.Y. Hilton, and I see an 8-point floor for him. So I'm still confident in that, but it's going to be Not ideal. I don't think that when they drew this one up back in whenever it was, May, they were like, yeah, Thanksgiving night, yeah, let's throw Scott Tolzien out there. But you know what, it is what it is.
It would have been cool to see Andrew Luck and Big Ben going at it, but as you said, no one's going to be starting Tolzien at quarterback. A lot of people that I've been talking to are mentioning Colin Kaepernick as a guy that they're going to replace Luck with. He's had a solid past 3 games in a row in fantasy land, not necessarily in the real world, but here all we care about is fantasy football. So
Rachel,
now he takes on the
You're shading poor Colin Kaepernick, man. You don't have to do that. Just say he's a fine fantasy player.
I know. I had to throw that extra tidbit just around the holidays, too. What kind of person am I? He's taking on the Miami Dolphins. Is he the waiver wire pickup or start of the week?
He might be. I think when you look at some of the streaming options, I mean, even with every game in play, there's no bye weeks. You're still looking at the streamable quarterbacks, and you're like, oh, this isn't great. And it's between Kaepernick and Carson Wentz, who has been awful. And he's been exceptionally awful trying to throw the ball deep down the field. And the contrast there is that the Packers can't stop anybody when you throw it deep down the field. I think the Packers have allowed 8 deep ball touchdowns this season. 5 of those have come in the last 4 games. And, of course, 3 of them were to Kirk Cousins last week. But the one thing about Kaepernick is that he's been pretty consistent. He gets you close to 20 fantasy points in standard NFL.com leagues. The most impressive thing to me is that he's not turning the ball over. I think he's had 1 interception in his last 3 to 4 games. He's holding on to the ball. He's making smarter decisions. I don't think there's a lot of talent there offensively for the 49ers, so he's making the best with what's being put out there, and he's done a solid job. And I must add that I had the Patriots defense last week. I was in a tight contest, and it came down to that game, and I'm like, for crying out loud, if the Patriots could have just made an interception, if they could have just had another sack or anything like that, it would have tilted the game in my favor. But unfortunately, they gave up the touchdown, which lost a couple of extra points to me, so that I was really bummed. Well, the reason I was in that position was because C.J. Prosise got hurt during the middle of that game when he was on the verge of putting up a 30-burger to the Eagles. But I'm not mad or anything. I don't know if my tone is.
Well, I was playing someone that did have C.J. Prosise, and before the game, I also dropped the Patriots defense in replace of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, who are of course playing.
I'm out. Good night. Bye, Rachel. I'm leaving.
So one of us is smiling this week 12. I do have to ask you, while we're trying to make you happy and put you in a good mood, about your Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Jay Cutler, of course, with the shoulder injury that is likely season-ending for him. So Matt Barkley will be making his first NFL start in their game against the Titans. So if you have guys like Jordan Howard, Jeremy Langford, Cameron Meredith, what is your advice for anyone that's starting Chicago Bears players?
You know, I would just wait and see how they're going to approach this. I think Marcus Wilson's also back, and somebody who, if you're in desperate need for a wide receiver, somebody who's worth an ad, because he did have as many targets as Cameron Meredith last week. And what you're going to be looking at is how the Bears are going to approach this game, because last year, in a game where Jimmy Clausen started in Seattle, the Bears had no interest in throwing the football. They were just kind of like, we're giving this one up. We just don't want to get anybody hurt. We're going to punt a bunch of times, and we're going to try to make the score look as respectable as possible, instead of going out and actually trying to win, which was a huge bummer, because obviously Seattle struggled in the early part of last season, and they didn't really need to do something like that. But hopefully John Fox has learned his lesson, and I hope he just looks at it in a way that, look, the Bears aren't going anywhere. There's no playoffs to be had or anything like that. Why not see what Matt Barkley has up his sleeve, what he can contribute? Because obviously you're auditioning quarterbacks for next season, and you're expected to bring back Brian Hoyer to be a backup. I would anticipate them putting a high-round draft pick on a quarterback, perhaps a second or third rounder. I still think that they should draft offensive linemen in the top 4 picks is where they're looking at right now. So just see what you got in Matt Barkley. What's the harm? So what? If you lose 45-0, it doesn't matter. There's no pride in keeping that game close. So I want to see what's happening, see what they do. I do hope they give him a chance. And if not, they let David Fales go this season. and he ended up on the Ravens practice squad. Now, the Bears brought him back. Now, there's two ways to look at it. I know one of my – because we have a lot of Bears fans who work here. And one guy was like, well, we give up on him. But I'm like, yeah, but I think the Bears actually thought they could compete this season, which is why they had a veteran as their third backup with Matt Barkley, because they knew that Hoyer and Cutler would face some sort of injury problems because they have traditionally. So if the Bears were actually in the midst of it, they would need a veteran backup. So I think also they could turn to Thale and see perhaps he's somebody that could be, a quarterback of the future. So I just want to see how it goes. And so I would hesitate to play anybody. I mean, I got Jordan Howard, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, part of me thinks like, well, they could run the ball like 80 times, and he might be worth, putting out there. But, man, it's such a terrible situation until we actually see what John Fox is thinking.
All right, stay tuned for that one. As far as trying to make the playoffs, many of us are in that situation where we're coming up on them, and we need these next few wins. So let's talk strategy. I know personally I have some good running backs that are still on my bench because I've been given the advice that you keep the running backs. They get injured so frequently, you don't want to trade them or get rid of them early on in the season. But at this point, do you try to get some trade value out of some of the better people that you have on your bench? Do you worry about not having a deep bench at this point?
Yeah, I think mostly you want some handcuffs back there. If you're rolling with somebody like Thomas Rawls, you might want to go pick up Alex Collins because Thomas Rawls has his own injury history, so it could turn once again. So I would start concentrating a little bit on the handcuffs. I would look at some of the players who are starting to return from injuries who might still be available on your waiver wire. Sammy Watkins is one of the names that comes to mind. Alshon Jeffrey has been released by everybody, and he would return in time for the fantasy playoffs. And if you look at the Bears' schedule, they do have a nice couple of games coming towards the end of the year. So Alshon could return and face a pretty nice slate of games. I think at some point, I think it's week 15 or week 16. They have a really great. They got the Titans. No, they got who do the Bears have? I'm trying to think. Hold on, it'll come to me. I know I'm stalling the show right now because the Alshon thing, because he'll come back in week 15 or 16, and they play the Packers in week 15, and you've seen how poorly the Bears how poorly the Packers have played against the pass. So you're like, all right, that could be a game that could be interesting. So looking at players like that and just trying to shore up the bench, and of course the trade deadline for most NFL.com standard leagues is the 27th. I'm sorry, I don't know what Yahoo's and ESPN's are, but I know for us it's the 27th in standard leagues. And I'm just looking right now and just kind of looking to be like, can I shore up some things? I know last week I was trying to take because I have Dak Prescott as one of my backup quarterbacks, so I would look at teams that could perhaps need a quarterback. I know the guy that had Ezekiel Elliott in my league. I was like trying to get Mike Evans from him, so I'm like, oh yeah, I'll give you Dak so you can combine those two, and I'll give you T.Y. Hilton if you could just give me Mike Evans. And the guy was like, no, man, that's stupid. And his dumb quarterback last week did nothing. And I'm like, yeah, I go, Dak Prescott's 34 points were on my bench, bruh. And he came in this week, and he goes, oh, I might want to do. I'm like, it's done. The window's closed. I'm not doing that. Maybe Mike Evans and another player now, but I'm not just giving you T.Y. and Dak Prescott. You don't deserve that. So, trying to make those kind of moves, trying to consolidate, make some 2-for-1s. I know in our NFL Fantasy League, I've put in a lot of work, making all these crazy trades, and I went from a roster that was really flimsy. It had Lamar, because I made a mistake. I was sitting there crowing about nailing the Rob Kelly thing. Here's one that I've just whipped. I drafted Lamar Miller in the second round for whatever reason. It just went against everything I was doing. I don't know. I think, I was hosting a Periscope while we were doing it. Listen, no excuses. I made a bad pick. I'm trying to rationalize it. I made a terrible pick.
We all did. We won't judge
so those things happen. So I was just so now I've been working just trying to trade everything, and even early on making some trades that were one-sided against me but have now turned to be positive. So I turned Lamar Miller and Odell Beckham Jr. into Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, Manny Sanders, and Michael Crabtree. So you're like, okay, so I've I've done a better job of evening that out. And I think Ezekiel for OBJ right now straight up would be fine. Lamar Miller and Todd Gurley are the same player. So I think, and I got a couple extra pieces. So now my focus is like, okay, so I've got a couple of extra guys. I picked up Rashad Jennings off the waiver wire a couple of weeks ago because I play with some dopes. I mean, like, it's an NFL fantasy league. You're on the fantasy show. Why are you dropping Rashad Jennings? Whatever. So, what do I care? He's on my team. I'm playing him against the Browns. This is amazing. But I'm trying to take some of those pieces now and trying to do okay, I'll give you Emmanuel Sanders and whatever, like Rashad Jennings for Mike Evans, or doing something like that. So trying to consolidate and trying to upgrade. I think it's a good modus operandi right now. And of course, if somebody's out of your league and they're sitting on a great player, like if somebody's in last place and they've got Odell Beckham Jr., for instance, just being like, and this, let me tell you something right now. I'm not above this. Like, hey, bro, I know it's not working out for you. How about I give you this? You send me Odell Beckham Jr., I'll take care of you next year. I do that kind of.
Wow.
When you play with friends who are friends who you've known forever, you have friends that you're better, you're better friends with somebody else. I play with my friends who I grew up with in Corona, and it's distinct. It's so crazy because there's a pair of twins in the league. There's two brothers in the league, and they're always cheating. They're always helping each other. So you got to kind of find one guy in your league who's kind of like your dude. So my friend who lived 2 doors down, I'm like, hey, bro, look, I know you're not doing that well this year, but let me tell you, give me Latavius Murray, and then we'll, that kind of stuff. So I'm not proud of it, but obviously not ashamed enough to not admit it on this podcast.
There are some shady dealings going down there in California. Here in New England, we always play by the rules. So
stop it. You do not. Wait, hold on, Rachel. Really? You think Paul Pierce being taken off the court in a wheelchair and then coming back like he's Willis Reed, that wasn't cheating in the finals that many years ago? Listen, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to talk great about Tom Brady and try to get back in everybody's good graces, but that ridiculousness, although he is a California guy, so it makes sense. Okay, that's actually going against my point. Never mind.
Well, your Lakers, I will say this. What a shot from Swaggy P.
Swaggy P, right?
Swaggy P. Stealing the ball, no less.
That was the best thing ever. Well, it was so funny, and I know we're veering off course here, but Brandon Ingram could not get rid of that ball fast enough. You're like, oh, dude, and I was kind of hoping, because look, I'll be perfectly honest with you. The Lakers might not win the NBA title this year. I know. Hold on. That's breaking news. I kind of wanted to see Brandon Ingram take that shot because you know what? Kobe would have as a rookie. Kobe did as a rookie. What am I saying? In the playoffs, no less. So I would have liked for Brandon Ingram to kind of be like, dude, I want this shot. I want to win this game. But Swaggy P was like, dude, I'll take this shot. He steals it from Lou Williams. So I kind of love that, and I love this team, and it's a lot of fun. And I know that you guys are having a lot of fun with Brad Stevens and what he's doing out there. So it's all good. When those two teams are good, basketball's better. So
it's good when we're both happy at the same time. I know a lot of the times we're talking about the Patriots, you're talking about the Bears. It's a little lopsided. So I agree. It's nice we're nice on the same page. Any final advice for us as we head into this week 12, this crucial time for us, this great time of Thanksgiving?
You know what? Let me shotgun a few points for you because we've been talking about things, obviously getting ready for our show. You guys early. You got me earlier in the week, so I'm right in the middle of it. But I know a lot of people are scared of the Ben Roethlisberger home road splits, and I'm like, please stop doing that. Please. And I mean telling my fellow fantasy enthusiasts to stop talking about that because it's last week against the Browns, they can't stop the run. There's no reason to throw the ball. So why, if you have Le'Veon Bell, why wouldn't you just give him the ball 40 times? Because that's going to make the game shorter. You're going to get out of there quicker. And I think that was just the strategy, and hopefully the Giants do that this week because, of course, I do have Rashad Jennings. Ding! But I think this week the Steelers, they're going to be back to throwing the ball, and Ben Roethlisberger's going to hit Antonio Brown for some big ones. So if you're afraid of he's terrible on the road, that's the dumbest thing. I ask my fellow coworkers to stop saying that because it's not true. So start Big Ben this week. He's going to be fine. Start Dak. If you're worried about the Thursday games, I wouldn't be. I know the Lions have a tougher matchup against Minnesota, But Stafford is somebody who I've been playing a lot, and I'm not worried about it. He thrives on Thanksgiving, and it's such a jarring thing to get used to. I think that any team that has to play that early morning Thursday game on Thanksgiving, you have a little bit of advantage if you do that each and every year. So I think that's cool. So I'd start him. Mariota is a great start. Andy Dalton's awful without A.J. Green. Don't start him. Matt Ryan. It's interesting. The Cardinals are one of the few teams that haven't allowed a 300-yard passer. Matt Ryan has 5 300-yard passing games, so it'll be interesting to see how that one breaks down. I see Matt Ryan having good yardage, maybe throwing a couple of picks or things like that. Todd Gurley and the Saints. I think Todd Gurley. I just hope the Rams will let Jared Goff throw the ball this week so Todd Gurley can go out, but I'm still starting him. Tyrell Williams has got a tough matchup against the Texans. Start all your Seahawks, Doug Baldwin, Thomas Rawls, all those guys. Obvious. Oh, yeah. I was going to say start Malcolm Mitchell, but you guys know about him. He's great. As long if Gronk, it appears Gronk is going to be out.
Right.
And if Chris Hogan doesn't come back either, like that Malcolm Mitchell, I'm telling you, you guys know this. Malcolm Mitchell's great. And Tom Brady's great. And Tom Brady, when he wins this week, he's going to have 200 wins as a quarterback, which will tie him with Peyton Manning. And that also includes playoffs. So that means that Peyton has 4 playoff wins in his career. So I don't know what that means. By the way,
yes.
I have still not forgiven the Patriots for allowing Peyton Manning and the Colts to win that Super Bowl against the Bears. And it's not that it was against the Bears. It was just awful. It was the worst gut punch because it just gave the Peyton Manning truthers the, hey, see, he's got a ring. You're like, he doesn't have a ring. He beat Rex Grossman. He didn't go out there and beat the greatest show on turf with an undermanned team in the final moments. Peyton Manning was on a team that won the Super Bowl. Tom Brady has won 4 Super Bowls. I think that's the most important thing that people need to remember. I'm going to go write that in my column. That's the takeaway, everybody. And by the way, the Colts had their little celebration for the 10-year anniversary of when they actually won something. And I'm like, did they invite Rex Grossman to that? Did they invite Marlon McCree? No, they did not. And anybody, Patriots fan, you remember that Marlon McCree play. Let me tell you something. That was the one thing. And listen, you guys have had such an embarrassment of riches. You should have just let the Chargers win that game so they could have humiliated the Colts again. Because how awesome would that have been? You guys knew you didn't have a great team that year, and yet you still felt we got to go and win this one. So I hope you're happy. I'm happy for you, and I blame you at the same time. But that's it. I'm trying to think. There's other I'm looking at this week. There's not a lot of great stuff. I know Spencer Ware's got a good match against the Broncos because the Broncos can't stop anybody on the ground. So hopefully he gets that going again. I'm just spitballing here right now. I'm sorry, Rachel. I feel like I'm wasting your time now.
Wasting my time or helping me win a fantasy league? We are all grateful for your advice. Appreciate it. Last thing, where can we find you on Fantasy and Friends on the NFL Network?
Oh, my gosh. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, you can watch our Wednesday show. It's at 6 p.m. Eastern, or DVR it and watch it at your leisure. Watch it before the games on Thursday because apparently you guys get to sleep until noon, and then there's still a half hour before a game starts. I'm going to go out bowling tonight with all my high school friends and get faded and then wake up at 11 and be like, oh, I forgot to set my lineup because the games start at 9:30 in the morning out here. But I'm kidding. I have a young child, so I will be asleep by 10, and I will be up at 6, so I'll have plenty of time to set my lineup. But watch Fantasy and Friends tonight and on Friday. Again, coming to you at 6 o'clock Eastern time. It's a fun show. It's a good time. I wouldn't steer you wrong. If it was a terrible show, I would let you know. I would be like, it's not going to be good. But I'll tell you this. It's going to be good.
Well, that's all we need to know. We will be tuning in. Thanks again, Adam.